from an endless night, he will rise to seduce the world.
I am the vampire Lestat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nom Watch Review, part of Nom Talk Network. On this show, we review the latest film drop or a throwback, celebrating a milestone while eating and drinking our favorite movie snacks and drinks. In my case, it's a homemade meal provided by my parentals, so it's really awesome. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Jordyn Orozco, and right now I'm enjoying some lovely stir fry. Yum, 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 yum. Thank you, Rents, for making that. I just got off work, so I was like, save me some, and so they got it. And I'm also drinking a Truly. It's truly magnificent, and some water as well. And I'm going to introduce some guests that we have today. So thank you all for joining me and joining us here at Nom Talk Network. So far, I have loved getting to know these guests, but let me introduce them, and then I'll have them say a little bit about themselves. So let's start with YaYa. What's going on, girl?
Hi! Oh my
It's been a
gosh.
while.
I know I have been on here in a hot minute, but I'm so glad to be back. Hello! My name is YaYa, and you can find me, oh my gosh. I am YaYa, and I am the YaYa of Jade Palace YaYa, as well as my Hamachi. And I am eating some noodles that my mom prepared for me. Thank God same. My mom's love parent cooking. And I am enjoying myself a little red wine. Or it could be blood. It's perfect for today.
Oh, I like
know.
the blood.
I know.
That's great.
AB positive.
That's
And I'm
great.
also enjoying some lemon water on the side just in case.
Absolutely. Gotta cleanse and retox.
Yes.
Retox. And our other guests for tonight, we have Alex and Ethan. How are you all?
Doing great.
Doing
great.
Good to see you all. So what's going on with you?
Well, we're just we're really hyped to talk about this movie. We're drinking a Coors Light, because this is a very light beer kind of movie. She also has a fruit punch here because it's red, and some Hostess snacks that are also red.
Yes.
That's
It's
good.
our first time.
Oh, nice. Well, welcome. I know, it's like my first time meeting you, and so this has been really awesome getting to know you all so far. I'm really upset that I don't have anything red. Actually, that's a lie, because my Truly is hibiscus flavored and it's red. So
There
I did
Yes.
that without any knowledge. So good for me. I was just like, oh, okay, whatever. Yes. So in case any of you don't know, we're talking about blood today. No. So today's film that we are discussing is the 2002 The Queen of the Damned. Now, this is starring stars like Stuart Townsend, Marguerite Moreau, Vincent Perez, Claudia Black, who I love from Farscape. Yes, I was an original Farscape fan. Lena Olin, and of course, the wonderful and talented and amazing Aaliyah, who I love outside of this movie, and all that other stuff that I was doing, that she was doing, for that. So, let's get into it. Let's get right into this, because I'm sort of feeling some mixed energy here, right? So for me, leading up to it, it was odd because, I think we were doing a little bit of a pre-discussion, and like this came out when I at least was in high school, and it was a movie that was like it was like goth, hot topic, when it was like, black boots, all that stuff, right? Not what it is today, which is like anime cartoons and then like a sprinkle, or other things that they used to do. And I was really excited for it, right? But seeing it again at my ripe age of 34, I was like, what was I thinking? It was like one of those things. It was really interesting. How did you all feel? Let's start with Alex and Ethan.
You go first. You have a lot more history than I do with it.
So, I probably watched it many years ago. I'm just gonna say probably like middle school. And yeah, I was so into it, and I feel like it was just due to like the aesthetic, or maybe just the main character. I think I was just into his vibe. I can't remember specifically like what parts I like loved, but I just remember after watching it, I just felt like it was just the vibe that I was feeling at that time, possibly. And then I don't know if you wanted me to go into like how I feel about it now, but as far as then, yeah, I was like totally into it, and I would have given it 4 stars out of 5.
Absolutely.
Well, for me, I mean, the only frame of reference I had prior to watching Queen of the Damned was Interview with the Vampire, which has Lestat is Tom Cruise as Lestat. Yeah, that was one of those movies that was always on rotation on like TNT in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So it was always on. I hadn't seen this. I know she had a lot of reverence for this film, Queen of the Damned. And we got about 15 minutes into this movie, and I look at her, and she's just quiet. And I was just kind of like, aren't you like a fan of this movie? You know, it's sort of all started to unravel from there. So
yeah, absolutely. And YaYa, what was your take on this? Like your experience up until watching it recently?
So, for me, like I grew up with the Vampire Chronicles. It was like a huge part of my personality growing up. I loved reading the books, and of course, when I loved watching Interview with the Vampire. And same with like the whole idea of like the aesthetics of that movie was so like it called to me as like this young little angsty like preteen. Like it was during like because this movie came out when I was like 11. So that was around the time that like, you know, it was right before middle school. That's also around the time I got to anime, ironically. But it like really like I remember watching this, I was like, yes. I'm like, this is what I want my life to be. This is what I want, like, you know. I think we were talking about this, how like what Jesse went through in the film. That's what I wanted to go through. I'm like, why can't I was doing like the whole like Bella from like Twilight, like, why can't a hot like vampire guy come for me and sing like rock songs to me and serenade me and like bite me?
Oh yeah. I wanted to be bitten. You know
right?
What I mean? Yeah.
Right? Oh my gosh, I think there was like, what was it like? Was something Daddy when we talked? I think this is like a old Nom Talk network update. We were talking about Halloween. It was something Daddy. I was like, not Vampire Daddy, Neck Daddy. Thank you, Stephanie. Neck Daddy. I needed a Neck Daddy, and Lestat was that ultimate Neck Daddy at that time.
I like that term. I never heard of it.
I do too. I really do. That was great. I'm gonna use that just in general from now on. Be like, are you gonna be my neck daddy? People are gonna be like, you're weird. Yeah, so it's really good that we have context from you, YaYa, from the books from Anne Rice, because you know it's really awesome because I haven't read the books, you know, and so just seeing the movie when I was younger, it was like I was totally into it. But having that frame of reference is really good. So we're definitely going to be sort of sourcing you for the rest of this conversation moving forward. Okay, so here it goes. Here on Nom Watch Review, we do ratings based off of popcorn buckets, and so far we all need to give sort of how many buckets. So we're going to do from 0 to 5 or 1 to 5 popcorn buckets. What would you all give it? Let's start with you, YaYa.
I give this movie a 3 popcorn buckets out of 5. It was good. It was good, but it wasn't. I'm like, as I said, I watched this when I was young and I thought it was amazing, and rewatching it I was like, what happened? It used to be so good. And of course, like now, like I guess like in a way now I do kind of compare it more with Interview with the Vampire than I did as a kid. When I was a kid, it was like, oh, the Queen of the Damned, it was so good. But now watching it, and I'm just like, as much as who was the actor? Stuart Townsend?
Yeah.
Yes, Stuart Townsend. As much as like he did a good job portraying Lestat, but he didn't feel like Lestat to me. Like, it's like, especially in the books and with like, I'm sorry, but like Tom Cruise as Lestat in Interview with the Vampire, oh my gosh, that is ultimate neck daddy.
Beautiful.
Yes, he's gorgeous. And according to the books, that's Tom Cruise's portrayal is very, very accurate to the book. Lestat in the book is like this little foppish little aristocrat, and he has like, you know, shoulder length like golden hair, like gray eyes that reflect blue or violet depending on like the thing, and he's supposed to be this beautiful little like prince. Actually, Lestat's nickname in the book is the Brat Prince. He's aristocratic, he's gorgeous, and unfortunately I don't think this actor portrayed that. I think he was a little too like nitty gritty for like what Lestat is supposed to be. And so that's why for me, like of course, like sorry, excuse me, one of the reasons why I give it like a 3 out of 5 is because the music for me was probably the best part of this film.
I think so too. I think for me, like as sexy as Stuart Townsend is, I think it was more because he was also in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and played Dorian Gray.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it literally was Dorian Gray but with a black wig on.
Yeah,
and I was like, but obviously this came out before, right? League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think it was 5 years, before.
I think Extraordinary Gentleman was like 2003. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and like I was like, oh, cool, Sean Connery, like I forgot Seth or whatever his name was, but he was also in that, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, ooh, I like him. Where have I? And then I was like, oh, he played Lestat. But I think it also was sort of that time where like grunge metal and like goth and punk metal was sort of like, like how do I put it? Like I think this was when I was in high school, but it was like Evanescence. That sort of genre sort of took off, right? And it was like goth metal, and it was like all this stuff, and I think that's sort of what they were thinking and reimagining and tailoring this movie to. What about Alex and Ethan? How many popcorn buckets would y'all give it?
After rewatching it, yeah, like so we actually got into it 15 minutes in, and we didn't watch it again for another like 7 days. It's like I needed some time to really like commit, Like,
yeah.
I was already committed. She was just cringing too hard.
Yeah. I gave it a 1 popcorn bucket out of 5 now.
Me personally, I was sort of into the camp appeal of it at first, and then I was just getting bored. It went from like a 1 to about a half popcorn bucket. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and was it just the style? Was it the story? Like, was it everything? Like, what was it?
Well,
I think like for me it was like the plot and the understanding, like, because like for me, I'm kind of like new when it comes to like understanding like well-developed storylines. So I feel like because there's a interview with the vampire, I felt like I was realizing like it doesn't feel very like layered and understanding. I don't know if it's because like maybe things were like cut out, like how YaYa was saying before.
It feels all over the place.
Yeah, so like having a hard time connecting each scene together. So for me it was like more plot, and then definitely like makeup when you like really
my thing was it didn't feel scary enough, it didn't feel sexy enough, it didn't feel gross enough. Like it seemed like for the first half hour or so, whenever they showed somebody getting bit, it would just cut away. And it's like, no, I want to see blood. I want to see the holes in the neck, And it was a vampire movie that they took the teeth out of. It felt like.
No, agree.
That was good. That was good. Wow, we're just coming up with like sayings tonight. That's great. Neck daddy. The teeth were out. Like, this is great. I'm loving this. Yeah, I would say my rating would be a 2 out of 5 popcorn buckets. I think only because when I saw this back in 2002 or 2003, right? I was like going through this stage, right? And I was like, this is the greatest movie ever. And it was like 5 out of 5 popcorn buckets. And now I look back and I'm like, what? It's like, what was I watching? Like, really? You watched Twilight? Like, it was that sort of mindset where it was like, why would you think this is the perfect thing? Like, why would you want, And so I think for me, you're right. Stylistically, and like, let's just talk about the story for a second. And those of you that haven't seen it, spoilers, but if you haven't seen it, it's been 20 years. By the way, 20 years today, right?
Oh my
Let's
gosh.
acknowledge that. That's insane. But for me, I think, just the story itself, you're right. It was all over the place. It was like, it starts out with him narrating how he fell asleep because, he didn't want to, he didn't want to participate in the world anymore. And then all of a sudden he gets woken up by these weird hicks playing in an attic where it was his attic. And then all of a sudden they're successful because he's like, I'm going to make you successful. And then it was like, but how, sir? Like, how did you do that? Like,
Exactly.
Like, did you glamour them? Like, did you, like, what was the story up until then? And YaYa, I don't know if that is explained in the book. Yeah, but
okay, so this part, it's been a hot minute since like I read the books too. But from what I remember, because the whole part of him falling asleep, like his slumber and waking up, wasn't actually acknowledged in Queen. It was kind of acknowledged, but it was brought up in the previous book, which was the Vampire Lestat, and like that was like a whole thing because if I remember correctly, what we end with like before to that is because he just kind of got sick of the modern world and he just slept. And it was the rock music apparently that did wake him up, and then like that kind of stuff. But like it's just, I do want to admit that the whole segmentation of the movie, it is kind of accurate to how the book writes. So in Queen of the Damned, it's, for what they try to do is actually okay, because the book, if they completely translated the book into film, it would have been a lot more questions for you guys, because the first like half of the book basically is just segments of different vampires, different ancients. So you have like Marius, I think you had Louis, you had like all of them just like suddenly like have like images of these like twin redheads. And that's like, that leads the whole question, like, who are they? Before leading into the whole, like, introduction of the queen, like, Akasha and Enku and that kind of stuff. But like, I lost my train of thought. But like, that's the thing. It's just like, it's like really, really weird. So I think it's just like, the thing with Lestat is that like when he was turned, he was actually left behind like a huge, like, no matter how much he spent, that money would not like disappear, because like he in the second book, of course spoilers, but like in the second book, when he was turned, his sire immediately kills himself right after turning Lestat, but he leaves behind a huge sum of money because of his sire was an ancient. So Lestat's not considered an ancient vampire, but in the movie you have like, Marius, you have who are the other ones? They didn't even introduce the other vampires, which kind of made me mad.
Yeah, but they just kind of appeared. They were just
at
like
the very end, right?
Hey.
Yes.
Yeah, they're like, hey bitches, we should probably get Lestat back.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess, because it was like Marius, Pandora, Maharet, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, they didn't even really introduce like Pandora, and you wouldn't know Pandora unless you read the books or read Pandora the novel. There was technically that young blonde cute looking one was supposed to be Armand, because Armand was played by Antonio Banderas, and I'm so sorry for those who love with Interview with the Vampire. Antonio Banderas was the worst casting in that movie for because technically Armand was supposed to be this young, kind of like border fledgling. He was like a young boy, beautiful little like little doll looking guy, and then you get Antonio Banderas, and I'm like, oh. I love the man, but it's like not best for Armand. But yeah, there was Armand. There was supposed to be like Cayman, but Cayman, I didn't see Cayman. I don't think I saw Cayman. But it was supposed to be all these other ancient vampires, and so yeah, so it's like they didn't introduce that. But as I say, with the whole, where was it going with the ancient ones again? I'm so sorry. I'm like losing my train of thought today.
While you remember, I'll just read. Yeah, I'll just read some comments. Q says, I remember this movie, and it's one of those movies that just perfectly matched, just like the book. Also, the soundtrack was slamming. Zural Tima 18 said, I remember watching the movie, but I can't remember anything about the movie. Which is basically, to me, watching it now, I'm like, it's forgettable. Like, it wasn't like, wow, like, this is something I definitely want to talk about. And I think this is another topic that we can get into, and we can start with Alex and Ethan about it. I think, obviously, the pull for this movie was Aaliyah, right? That was the pull for the Queen of the Damned. Like, it's about her. It's about, like, it, you know, yeah, it is surrounding Lestat, and yeah, you're like, okay, like, we know who he is. But then ultimately, right, Akasha falls in love with Lestat. And I don't know if that's, you know, how that is, but how did you feel about acting choices for Akasha and Aaliyah doing that?
The whole thing that
the gloves are off. The gloves are off.
The whole thing I couldn't get out of my head because I'm not a big music person, so I don't know much about Aaliyah's music. But I couldn't get out of my head the fact, because I do remember before this movie came out, I remember she died in that plane crash in 2001. You know, I remember that. And then recently we watched that R. Kelly documentary where it talked about how Aaliyah was married to him for a little bit, and I just couldn't remove that while watching her on screen. So that was already a demerit. But then it also reminded me of, do you remember the 2016 Suicide Squad where Cara Delevingne, I don't know how to say her last name.
Cara Delevingne.
Yeah. She played the Enchantress, and I swear to God, Aaliyah is doing this performance.
Or Cara is doing the same as.
Yeah, or they're both doing the same performance.
Yeah.
It's all like just gyrating, and it just, there wasn't much there. I feel like the voice modulation, it took me like I don't know, it was like the second or third scene with Aaliyah, and I was like, are they doing something with her voice here? Like,
yeah.
Here?
So fun, I mean, not fun fact, because that's not fun at all, but you know, Aaliyah died in the middle of filming Queen of the Damned, and a lot of the scenes they had to redo, but there were some scenes where her accent was so, I don't want to say bad, but her accent was so thick that they had to get her brother, who sounds just like her, to come in and dub over, which is why you might hear that. And so he came in and had to dub over some of the stuff that they couldn't understand because she couldn't film it again.
Yeah.
And so he got brought in to do some of the scenes for him or for her.
That really makes sense now that I think about it. And like, you feel that in the movie that she doesn't really factor in too much, it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. And like for me, it was also like, I think that was the pull. It's kind of like putting, like yesterday when we were talking about Uncharted, it's like putting Spider-Man and Marky Mark into a video game film and trying to pull sort of those people, which it's like, great, Tom Holland is Spider-Man and he's already a part of the nerddom, right? He's part of the geekdom, the Marvel MCU, right? But then it's like, when you try to pull him into another fandom that's like has been waiting years for this movie, are you pandering, or are you really trying to say, hey, this was the best pick that we had, right? And so I think Aaliyah was that, right? I think there were people in this time that could have definitely played the role 100% better, but I think this was the pull for this movie, especially at that time. And she was still big, right? Like she was still doing that, and we had no idea what was going on behind the scenes yet, right? Like we kind of, people knew who knew, but we, like as the younger generation, like we didn't know until clearly 20 years, 15 years later, right? And you're like, oh wow, like this was years of like doing what they did. And so, I mean, I feel like they definitely could have done better. Yeah, and there was some scenes where I was like, what are you doing? Like you're what are you,
like a snake kind of a thing?
Oh, and then it's like you can burn people up, which I thought was pretty badass. I'm like, I would want that power. Like, cool. Like, I don't like you. You're gonna die, and I'm the queen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna say what you know. But I wanted to ask YaYa, how was that in comparison to the book? Like, is she that powerful?
So, yes. Also, I remember the whole ancient thing. The whole ancient thing with Lestat, because he had a lot of money. Ancient vampires live for a long time. They have a lot of money. Lestat got that. Anyways, but actually in the book, Akasha is like horrible. It's actually like, I don't think Aaliyah like really portrayed her very well. I don't think it's her, but I also think it's just the script and everything as well. Was that Akasha's character was not portrayed and written very well or true to the story in the film. Like, okay, so for the book, the Queen of the Damned was the introduction to how vampires were made. Sorry. So that's the reason why she is the Queen of the Damned, is because she was the first vampire. And there's like a whole backstory to that. And I don't want to like say certain words because it's not really good words. But basically in the past, it's like she was the queen of pre-Egypt. It was like Kemet. She was so they actually never even, one of the major important stories to Akasha's story is actually Maharet and Mekare. Maharet is in the film, Mekare isn't. And those were their twin witches that kind of ties into the Mayfair witches part of the Chronicle series, Vampire Chronicle series. But anyway, so basically Akasha was this young, beautiful queen, but she was so bloodthirsty. She was like the whole idea of like, oh, I'm the queen, what I say goes, nothing can touch me. And so what happened with like Akasha, like basically she kidnaps these two, the twins, Maharet and Mekare, and then like we're like, oh, we heard that you can talk to spirits. And then they're all like, yeah. And they're like, okay, talk to these spirits. But we're like, well, we did. And then, but like, just so Akasha was asking the twins, like, oh, all these questions, and asking basically like, you know, like psychic, like, oh, tell me these answers. And the twins did it. They portrayed they showed their powers, they asked the thing, but all of the answers that the spirits gave them went against what Akasha wanted to hear. So what she does is that like, okay, you are blasphemous. You are heretics because none of your answers goes with what I wanted to hear. I'm gonna imprison you, have someone take advantage of you to show that you are weak, and then they let him go. And then like, so unfortunately, the reason why Maharet in the film actually has the descendants, remember how she says like, oh, I had it before Akasha turned me. She got pregnant from the unfortunate encounter by one of she got pregnant, and they went back, and then but her sister Mekare was all like, oh, she was really angry, so she actually like made a contract with one of the really bad spirits to like torment Akasha and Enkidu until like to the point that like, you know, they started going mad, and all the nobles started like, you know, the nobles like wanted to, what's the thing called, riots, like a coup, and then like try to kill them, and they almost died. But with the whole spirit, the reason why vampires exist in the vampire series was because the spirit that was tormenting Akasha and them liked drinking blood, and so he actually merged himself with Akasha, and so she actually became the first vampire, and she turned Enkidu, who turned everyone else, and then they went and go kidnap the twins again, the poor twins. And then like, you know, they're like, oh, hey, like, we're powerful now. What you tried to do didn't work, so we're gonna imprison you for the rest of your life. And then like one of their like guards turned the twins, and they try to escape, and then Akasha was like, no, you can't. What she does, she gouges out Maharet's eyes and cuts off Mekare's tongue, puts them into two like stone coffins, and sends them off to opposite sides of the ocean. So if I remember correctly, Maharet landed in Greece, while Mekare landed in like Southern America. And then basically, and then like everything that Akasha, like she does, everything she does is horrible. And they don't really portray that in the movie. It's like, she's like, yeah, like, you know, you have to listen to me or else like, you know, then you die. But in the book, her thing wasn't just she wanted to like take over the world. She wanted to kill 90% of the men and make the world into its like female Eden, where like, you know, females are like superior and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I don't remember if I remember correctly, did it show in the film that she kills like her husband, like the other?
Yeah. Oh, in the film?
Yes.
Well, in the film, so I don't know if you all remember, it was when Lestat discovers their hiding place or their tomb that Marius is keeping.
Yes.
And then Lestat drinks from Akasha. Yes. And then because his band is playing, it awakens Akasha.
Yes.
And you see the king, he basically, his neck is ripped open.
Out. Okay, yeah.
Yes. And basically she took his power.
Yeah. Okay. I think I kind of just blanked out at that point for so long. I was like watching. I was like,
it's very easy to in this movie. It's very easy to, and
she does kill Enkel, and then like she wants to make Lestat because Lestat is really powerful. Lestat has drank from ancients. Like Lestat at that point is probably the most powerful vampire because he has drinking from Magnus, which is his like sire, which was an ancient. He's drank from like Marius and that kind of stuff. So he's very powerful, and that's like the reason why she's drawn to him and that kind of stuff. But no, she's kind of a butt in the book.
Yeah, I think too, just to give reference. So when we're talking about Maharet, that's Lena Olin, who played Jessie, her aunt in it, right? And so that's where you sort of get that, and then Jessie, who's played by Marguerite Moreau. Let's talk about Jessie's character, because that was like, so, you know, I am all for strong female leads. I'm all about, you know, putting women for, and I just didn't feel like Jessie's character was a strong lead. I didn't feel like that was, I feel like they could have done much more with that, and they didn't in the movie. It was more, you know, and I don't know if it was a product of their time, but I was just like, I wasn't feeling Jessie at all. I wasn't feeling it. I didn't see why Lestat eventually became quote unquote attracted to Jessie. It was just sort of like what Ethan was saying. Everything just sort of happened without any explanation, and then it was like, well, no, I kind of want to know why, but you didn't really, you know, you couldn't really say it. So, what did we all think of Jessie and sort of the interaction with Lestat?
Bland.
Yeah.
She's an obvious audience surrogate character, you know, just so we know what's going on. She doesn't know what's going on, so she's 10 steps behind everything. And oh man.
And I kind of didn't know what was going on with was that professor or the person that she
it was like her boss?
David?
Was David into her, and then she's like into, like, you know, is it kind of supposed to be this like
is he getting cucked by Lestat?
Yeah, like
he's getting blocked. He's getting blocked.
Yeah, okay. I was like,
that's one thing I understand.
Because he just shows up. David just shows up at the blast concert at the and
it almost seemed like it almost seemed like everybody just showed up at the concert. Everybody just showed up out of nowhere. And then you're like, right, but so Lestat has been trying to get the vampires out of hiding. Like, it was just this weird
out in the open.
Yeah, and I do have to say, I will say that for the aesthetic of the movie, I mean, it reached out to the audience that it reached out to, and that's why it was so big, right? It was those teens, it was that angst, right? It was the feeling of like, oh, these are vampires who have a story to tell, all this stuff. But it really sort of caught the audience that it needed to, and it was successful back then, right? We're looking at it now through a lens of like, if this were put out, like, there probably would be stars that were, you know, a little bit more tailored to what's going on, you know, all that other things. But I think it did what it did. Just really quick, Q said, like I said, the soundtrack was awesome, but if I produced the soundtrack, I would put together a goth metal supergroup with the members of Type O Negative, Black Sabbath, Fear Factory, and 9 Inch Nails. That's great. Yeah. Also, fun fact, soundtrack album by Jonathan Davis and Richard Gibbs from Korn. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was never into that type of music when I was growing up. The boys that I were into were, but I wasn't. I was like, oh, like Mariah Carey, Britney Spears. But yeah, but you know, I did some, you know, so that's a good fun fact, you know. Yes, and so let's go into
one more thing on Jessie.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, there's the scene where she wants to be turned, right? She wants to be turned by Lestat into a vampire, and he takes her up to Griffith Observatory, and he's scoping out. There's a vampire who's trying to pick up on a human being here, and he scares the vampire away. Kind of a cool moment, just kind of. I won't give it too much credit. But then I remember Jessie says to Lestat, "What are you doing?" God, like what's not registering here? You
right.
Change, and he's gonna show you.
We all knew at that moment.
She's just bland in general. That's the thing, though. If like she wasn't that big of a thing in the book. She's actually not that big of a character in the series. Actually, David is, because David was actually one of the main characters in the next book, which is the Tale of the Body Thief. And I think, like, of course, like, I think, like, they really wanted to put Lestat with, like, Lestat had to, like, fall in love with her, because that's, like, you know, the thing that has to happen when, like, you know, I'm sorry, but, like, Lestat's soulmate is definitely Louis, so.
Yeah. You know, they had to have a heterosexual relationship.
Yeah, so I was just kind of like, ugh. And then the ending with, like, Marius and Bia, like, hello. And I was like,
the one thing that really bothered me was the Marius character, is that his name?
Yeah.
There's just nothing there between him and Lestat, and it's like, this should be like Louis Lestat from Interview with the Vampire, but there's just nothing there. It's a completely hetero male relationship there, you know. And
yeah, I think this would be a really good, like, I think watching the Interview with the Vampire would be another good Nom Watch review, because I feel like after this we'd be like, so this movie, oh my god,
amazing.
right?
that was a classic.
We'd be like, gay rights, right? Yeah, I do feel like this definitely, it sounds like, and you can correct me, YaYa, but it sort of strayed away from just sort of the central thesis and aspect of what Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles were all about, right? Like this, I feel like this was a pander movie, and this pandered to the audience that it needed to reach. And I feel like, for one, my expectations were different back then than they are now, where it's like, I can watch a movie, I'm not a film critic, right? But I could watch a movie and be like, that wasn't a good movie because you tried too hard, right? Like you tried a little bit too hard to, like, sort of cater to, you know, aspects of your audience, versus watching a movie that genuinely gives, you know, ode to, right? Like, to sort of like a sort of audience or a niche audience or fandom of what, you know, what needs to happen. I think, you know, the audience that it was trying to reach versus, like, nowadays, right? Like, let's say, for example, you try to throw this movie out when there's already been sort of like a Twilight, there's already been, you know, shows like what's that one show? I think it was
Vampire Diaries?
Vampire Diaries, yeah.
So there's Vampire Diaries, but then there's also, I started watching this show and it just got terrible.
Is it recent?
Yeah, it was a woman. It's like the end of the world and vampires, like, they rule, and
Underworld?
Oh, so okay, I could talk about Underworld all day. I'm a huge fan of Underworld.
I love Underworld.
Oh my god, Kate Beckinsale, I love you.
Oh my god, yes.
No, it was yeah, it was not why no. It was like a woman, and she's like, anyway, I'll think of it. I'll think of it when we're talking about something else. Yeah, but like, I think if you introduced it now with what's been already put out in regards to vampires and everything, it wouldn't hold a candle to anything. Because this movie was like, you're like, oh great, that's cute, and then it was like, because you had Interview with the Vampire, then you had the Queen of the Damned, and then you had like Blade, which didn't come out. I think it came out either before or a little bit after this movie, which Blade I loved. Yeah, which I loved Blade. I thought it was okay for what it was in the time that it was made, right? Like Wesley Snipes, great. Like, you were Justin Chuang-Fu, and now you're like playing this badass like vampire killer who's like doing all this stuff. I'm just like, you're great. Like, you're an awesome person. How do we feel about our now expectations versus our before expectations? Like, do you think this film could have held a candle, like, as it was released? Do you feel like this was something that is a product of its time and should stay there?
Yeah, well, we actually recently watched at the New Beverly at it was Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh yeah.
Coppola one, yeah.
And like, in my perspective, I feel like it really opened my eyes of like the artfulness of what vampire and like, I don't know, what kind of like vampire movies can like offer like art wise. So I don't know, I feel like, you know, with this movie, with the Queen of the Damned, it should just stay in its time. Maybe like, I'm not understanding because like I feel like I watched it way after it opened, but maybe it like helped. In your perspective, do you guys feel like it paved the way for like other vampire movies to kind of perfect it more, or does it just kind of just thrown together? It doesn't really matter.
I think personally, because Twilight came out like a good 6 years or so after, so like this wasn't even in the back of their minds. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. I was walking into this expecting a good campy time, and there's some parts. There's definitely some parts, but it just bored me, to be honest.
Yeah.
And yeah, the thing about it is like, I can't imagine this movie. This movie came out and it was already 20 years dated. It felt like.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems so directly from 2001, 2002.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is we need to put nails in this coffin, right? Like we need to put nails in this coffin movie. Yeah, do you feel like it's just a product of the time and should stay there?
Definitely. Like for me, I think for me definitely is I have nostalgia goggles for this movie.
Yeah.
It's that like
that's what I was.
Yeah, like I can technically still rewatch this on the side, listening to music and what's going on instead. But no, this is definitely a product of that time. And
Q said
like looking at a yearbook photo of yourself, you know.
Yeah. I'm not kidding you. I literally I was like when I think Stephanie asked me, "Oh, do you want to do Queen of the Damned?" I was like, I haven't heard that name in probably 20 years. And I was like, oh crap. So then I told you, I was watching it at work. Like, oh gosh, I hope nobody's like, my boss doesn't know I'm doing this, but I was watching it at work while I was working. So I have a computer and then I was watching it on my laptop and I was like, there was just parts where I was like, what? Like, what? That is so inconsistent. Okay. But back then you don't have that eye, right? Like you have the eye of Lestat is this sexy sort of like beast and you're like, what is he doing? And then all of a sudden Jessie comes out and you're like, oh cool, she's like doing something that I want to do, which is go and visit a vampire bar. And then right, because it was like when True Blood came out, I like crapped my pants because I was like, this is the best show ever on the planet. But then I do agree with you. There wasn't diversity in this cast at all. Like there wasn't any diversity in this cast. There wasn't any diversity in the film at all. It just seemed like it was a regurgitation and like a remake of what they've already tried to do. But then they sort of didn't stylistically, do the right thing in this. And it just sort of came up a huge mess, right?
I think they just try too hard. It's like to hold the whole like for me also like the whole emphasis like, oh, Lestat is a vampire. Have him like crawling on the walls and doing
which was
all
weird.
Yeah, and then like you see the girls just standing there like, just like as they're still watching him, they're still like, If I saw someone already like even like a foot off the floor like Spider-Man against the wall, I'm like,
Yeah, they were like watching, and then the way that he killed them, I was like, that was it was slow. I was
slow. Like watching it. Yeah, he fell, and then he was just like, they're just squirming in this pile, and I'm like, there's two of them. Is his like lower body just like forcing one down while he's like biting the other? I'm just like, no, compared to like Interview with the Vampire where you see the deaths. I'm sorry, those deaths were like gorgeously done. Like, do you remember that scene where like he was like trying to seduce that sex worker, the girl, and then like he's like making out with her, he bites her tit, and then she's like turned on until she looks down.
This is exactly what I said watching the movie. Like I remember watching that on TV in thousands and still being disturbed, just see a little blood on her chest and it's like, oh god, what the hell just happened? Yeah,
and it gets bigger and it's just like blood just coming out of the wound. You don't see the wound, but you see that blood stain just getting bigger and bigger. And it's like all the deaths done in Interview with the Vampire was so gorgeous. Like the way that Claudia killed, the way that like like even Louis, like Louis doesn't like to kill in the beginning, but like all of it was done. And here, just like you said earlier, it's just like
That's literally what it was.
And the teeth like, growing longer, they're like,
oh
yeah.
Always one of my favorite parts of a vampire movie, just how like the actors it's like
yeah. Q says the Coppola version was good, but nothing beats the classic Dracula with Bela Lugosi.
Respect.
Wait, right? Like, well, you can't say, that for sure is one you can watch all over again. One of my personal favorites was Nosferatu. I think Nosferatu was one of my favorite old vampire movies because he's so goofy and then but goofy looking, but then you're like, oh, that was actually supposed to be a scary movie for its time, right? Like that was actually supposed to scare people.
I don't know if you remember this SpongeBob episode.
Yes. Yes. Where
I
like
always remembered Nosferatu popping in. That scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. I had no idea what that was.
Because then he like turns the light off and Nosferatu.
It's like
yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, that's funny. And then I just found out Nosferatu turns 100 this year.
Oh, we're gonna have to.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Nosferatu.
it's public domain.
Yeah.
It's scarier than the movie we're talking about.
I have an idea. Let's do a Nosferatu meets Queen of the Damned remake. Just kidding. We're not going to do that ever in the history of human history.
Isn't that technically Dracula 2000 with Gerald Butler?
Oh my god, a much better movie than this one, I have to say.
You know, I'm really upset that I can't remember that series. See, it wasn't that memorable, but I watched every single season and it was trash. Van Helsing. It was the new Van Helsing with the woman.
Oh, that one. See, for me, Van Helsing will forever. The best one for me is the one with Hugh Jackman.
Yes.
Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Absolutely. I just think anything with Kate Beckinsale is like.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Perfect. No, I would literally do a Nom Watch review for every Underworld movie that has ever existed. Like I would you want to talk about obsession? I have every single Underworld on like DVD, 4K, blue, like I love it. I love it.
It's so good.
It's so good. But yeah.
So if you want to give me homework, I'd be glad.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
They're on Netflix, right? Or they were on Netflix.
Some of them are.
Yeah, I think some of them are. A lot of them, I think, I gotta look, but they're available on some streaming platforms. I'll talk to the producer to see if we can do it. But that would be so good. I love Underworld. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, friends. So, do we have any final thoughts on the movies or anything else that you'd like to add?
I wanted to add because like YaYa was explaining, so many things in that book sound very interesting, and you get slivers of very interesting things in this movie. Like at the very end, they're introduced to this character. I can't remember any character names except for Lestat, but there's this old vampire lady, and she's explaining how she was turned and her daughter.
Oh, Maharet, yeah.
And she basically was the mother to all these human children throughout, hundreds of years. And I was thinking while she was explaining, it's like, oh, that's the movie I want to watch. That's some interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
And yeah, like there's slivers of that throughout this movie, and there's just nothing going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then sorry. I gotta mention that action sequence at the concert.
Better.
Was better.
Yeah, it's more engaging. Oh god, it's just like, and then the crowd, how they're all like, yeah, it's just made it so much cheesier.
I loved the newspaper clip that said
drugs in the water.
That's how you explain that? Like, really? Everybody saw it. Nobody like.
And our vampires, people know what vampires are now, so you don't need to do that.
True. That's true. Alex, any final thoughts? Any final, I know you were crushed, and I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Okay.
No, it's terrible. It's like if I were to watch, I don't know, if I were to watch another movie that I thought was great. Sometimes I will just, to prove I'm not insane, I will watch Twilight just to make sure that it was a horrible movie, because I used to love the Twilight series.
Oh,
I camped out.
Yeah,
I for sure like them for their camp appeal. I think they deliver on camp appeal for sure. They're not very good movies, but
no, I watch it and I'm like, why did I wait overnight to get tickets to meet the stars so I could get it? I still have the poster in my room signed by the guy that played Charlie, Billy, and I still have it, but I'm like,
really good performance of those movies.
Yeah. Anyway, Alex, what did you think? Any last thoughts? Any last words?
I feel like when I heard about Queen of the Damned to do this for for Nom Watch review, I was like, oh, awesome, I'm gonna like just buy it on Apple, like with no regret. Like I just was straight up like, the poster looks great, like the actors, like we were saying before, like visually without like them acting, like they look like the part, you know, like, and as soon as I purchased it and then we started watching it, I was like, oh no, I spent how much money on this? Like, obviously I looked if it's on any streaming services first, but I was like, oh, I'll put it on and maybe like other people will come over and we could just have this on playing in the background or something. It's like, it's gonna be a good investment. And then I was like, oh no, like this is a total regret buy. So that's just my final thoughts. Aesthetically, like the movie poster just really framed a different perspective of me rewatching it.
That's a great poster. That is a great.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
The poster gets 5 bags of
Yeah.
Pre-movie.
Yeah.
Okay, and YaYa, what, any final thoughts, anything? You seem to be the expert.
Oh my gosh. Well, one, I wish that they kept the original ending of the book, because the original one was actually not them sucking out of Akasha's blood and then her turning to dust and that kind of stuff, but was that her brain and heart was eaten. It was torn out of her and consumed by one of the because in the film, like, what was it, Maher took on her like sleep or something like that. But in the book it was actually like her brain was consumed in front of everyone. It was like and I'm like, I thought that would have been so much cooler than just all like sucking her and then like some of them burning up and like but
yeah, the CGI, oh jeez.
Yeah.
Terrible.
So
I mean, keep in mind it's 2002.
it is 2002.
But you know what? We had, what did we have? We had Lord of the Rings back then. We had some good stuff.
True.
We had some good
That's
stuff
true.
then.
That's true. Like as I said, like, you know, for me, I had fond memories of this film as a young angsty preteen, and it's kind of hard to, in a way, accept that this was bad.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
I'm a little crushed by some. I'm just like,
Yeah.
but
I'm sorry.
it's okay. But
Yeah,
hopefully there is a TV series that's coming out soon.
Oh,
Really?
There is a TV series coming out, and it's supposed to be like a more accurate portrayal of the Vampire Chronicles.
good.
And the casting so far looks pretty good. I'm really, really excited for that. But as much as I don't like Anne Rice anymore, I'm really sad for how she was. She actually said that this movie bastardized her work. She herself has said that on her own platform, so that has to say for herself.
A stake and a couple nails in this coffin is, I think for me, it was that nostalgic time period where everybody is just trying to do stuff, and everybody, like, you're like, right, you're a teenager, and you know, I aged myself by saying I was a freshman in high school when it came out, but I feel like that was, I feel like that was the time. That was the audience. It was pulled in. A lot of my friends really love this movie, and so I think, you know, seeing it now versus then, it's sort of it's different. It's nostalgic. I won't watch it again. It's not worth it. I feel like it's very forgettable, but it was nice to kind of just do something like this, to talk with people about it. So it's really awesome. So I just wanted to say that's kind of all we have time to talk about. The 2002, The Queen of the Damned. Thank you everybody for tuning in that watched Nom Talk Live and Nom Talk Review. Shout out to all my guests here. Yes, YaYa, for bringing all of the yesification of the books as well as any review. Alex and Ethan, it was wonderful getting to know you, see you, talk with you, hearing all of your wonderful and valid opinions on this wonderful film. I would just like to ask, YaYa, where can we find you? What's going on?
Well, you can find me on YouTube at JPalaceYaYa. I upload every other week talking about Chinese culture, Chinese history, Chinese traditions, and all that fun stuff. But you can also find me on Twitch. I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays at 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it is at my Hamachi. And you can find me on other social media, like, you know, stuff as well, Instagram, either at JPalaceYaYa or at my Hamachi.
Yay! Awesome. That sounds great. And let's start with Alex. Where can we find you? What are you up to?
Oh, so actually both of us have an account on Instagram called Once Upon a Time in Whitwood. So basically we just kind of recently started it, but we obviously love films and we really appreciate you guys love films as well. But yeah, we just basically, you know, around the LA area or just watching at home, just have little things that we like to basically comment on. And if you want to add a little bit more what we do.
Me and my buddy Josh, we're currently starting a podcast. We haven't released anything yet. We recorded at least 2, maybe 3. The first one we did kind of drunk, so it's not gonna happen. But I'm sure we'll be on here again, and yeah, I'll plug that next time. But I'm also on Letterboxd. I'm Real Stoner Views, REEL
Yes.
STONERVIEWS. Yeah, so you could find me there. You could read all my thoughts on whatever. So
That's great. That's awesome. Well, thank you all for coming. My name is Jordyn. You can find me at City of Stars 13 on Instagram. This is sort of like my alter ego at night. I kind of like doing nerddom and geekdoms and doing Nom Watch with Stephanie. It's been really great. So I don't know if you all know or any of your viewers know, so Nom Watch Review is now in podcast form. If you missed this live stream, don't worry. You can listen to it the next day on Google Podcasts, Breaker, Spotify, or wherever you get your wonderful little podcasts. And you can subscribe and review. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/NomTalkNetwork. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/NomTalkNetwork, as well as here on Twitch. And then I would please like to thank and send all the loves, hugs, and kisses to our wonderful producer tonight, Miss Stephanie Sandmeyer. You did awesome. We loved the little cameo, the little guest appearance that you did earlier
Yes.
for Neck Daddy.
Neck
'cause that's
Daddy.
definitely something I'm going to be using for the rest of my life until the day I die or become a vampire. So it's going to be great. So thank you so much, Stephanie. So tune into our next show. It's going to be Basic Binges, and they're going to be viewing The Woman in the House Across the Street from The Girl in the Window. And that's going to be tomorrow. So make sure you tune in for all of that. So until then, I'm your host, Jordyn Orozco, and you all have a wonderful, nomorific day. We will see you later. Bye, everyone.
bye. This was fun.